Welcome to Tax File Special, a distinguished edition of our program where we shine the spotlight on the masterminds shaping Nigeria's fiscal landscape. I am your host, Naure Bala Hassan. Tax File Special is dedicated to thought leaders, policymakers, and industry trailblazers whose work have redefined tax administration, fiscal policy, and economic growth in Nigeria. Today, we are honored to feature a remarkable guest, an architect of tax reforms, a visionary in fiscal policy, and an advocate of economic transformation. The chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, he has been at the forefront of reimaging Nigeria's tax system for efficiency, equity, and sustainability. This show promises to be insightful and informative. Stay with us for an experience that informs and elevates your perspective. We begin with the news. 25.02 trillion naira has been earmarked as the 2025 revenue target for the Federal Inland Revenue Service. This target was unveiled at the 2025 Strategic Management Retreat held recently in Abuja. All who were present at the retreat were enjoined to embrace the new FIRS targets with courage and purpose so as to propel the service to greater heights. Mariam Jode Adura, who was at the venue of the event, now reports.
While declaring the 2025 Strategic Management Retreat open, the Executive Chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Dr. Zach Adedeji, commended staff and taxpayers alike for their efforts in seeing that the 2024 budget was exceeded. He said the essence of the retreat is to set the tone for the new year, review action plans, and brainstorm on ways of improving them. Adedeji said the FIRS is a cornerstone of the Nigerian economy, hence the need to focus and consolidate on internal structures. He added that his mission is to build a service of excellence, and for this reason, the roadmap for 2025 include trainings for the workforce, infrastructure and facility enhancement, and technological advancement within the service.
We gather today at the dawn of 2025. I stand before you filled with pride, gratitude, and unwavering sense of purpose. Together, we close the chapter of 2024 with an achievement that will forever be recorded in the history of Federal Inland Revenue Service, a record-breaking collection of 21.6 trillion in revenue, surpassing our target of 19.4 trillion. This was no small feat. It was the result of your resilience, professionalism, and dedication, coupled with the visionary leadership from all coordinating directors, special advisors, and our researchers. As we step confidently into 2025, we must carry forward the momentum of this achievement with renewed energy, a clear vision, and meticulously designed roadmap. This year, our focus will be on consolidating and institutionalizing our internal strength to ensure long-term resilience and operational excellence. This year, our mission is both ambitious and transformative, to build a service of excellence defined by the expertise of our people, the modernization of our facilities, and innovative use of technology to enhance our processes. This mission is not just about sustaining our success, but about consistently elevating our impact and solidify our position as a model revenue authority on the global stage.
In a bid to drive innovation in tax collection and administration, Executive Chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Zach Adedeji, has launched the service's Standard Operations Procedure SOP. The SOP will standardize processes and procedures across the field offices of the Federal Inland Revenue Service. Ashu Abe reports.
The coordinating director of the Compliance Support Group, Mr. Matthew Bodungbola, emphasized that the primary goals of the Standard Operating Procedures, SOPs, include improving overall organizational performance and fostering greater collaboration among stakeholders. Additional objectives include aligning field operations with the strategic goals of FIRS, enhancing adherence to standardized processes to ensure consistency across all field locations, and integrating robust process controls to give management confidence that operations are running efficiently and effectively.
We are not going to give you printed copies. They are on the portal. You are working a process, you are not sure, go, click, read, apply. And so with this, let me, on behalf of the chairman and management, I have the honor to present to you the standard operating procedure of all our field locations in Federal
SOP means Standard Operating Procedures. And what it stands for is providing a detailed guideline of all our processes to our tax officials in all of our offices and functions, such that we can have the same standard to offer service to our customers, irrespective of which office you go. How are you received? How do you make returns? If we have to do audit, what standard do we, processes do we apply? And all of those things that has to do with our operations. And the end game is to give a very good experience to our taxpayers, irrespective of whether you are going to a small or a medium or a large tax office.
And still on the 2025 Strategic Management Retreat, to further boost inclusive revenue growth, reforms for the private sector should be explored. Business enabling reforms such as agricultural business, energy, digital and mineral exploration should be looked into. This was the view of senior economist at the World Bank, Mr. Samir Mata, during the paper presentation titled Overview of Regulatory and Macroeconomic Environment. The reports.
According to Samir, Nigeria needs an 11% growth in 6 to 7 years to become a $1 trillion economy. To do this, it must unleash its growth potential by implementing fiscal reforms.
So it's really important, particularly I would say at the state level, to start thinking on how to use the revenue gains to invest in areas that would boost growth, which are public goods, like infrastructure, like education, health, okay, and security, of course, because that's needed. So I think this is something where the fiscal policy can do, and that's important to start, using that revenue gains to invest more in those areas.
And that wraps up the news. Now, to the segment that makes this episode truly special, which is our interview with the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms.
This is still Tax File Special. My name is Arabinrin Aderunke. With me is still Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, the Presidential Committee Chairman on Tax and Fiscal Policy Reform. Thank you for coming here today, and it's a pleasure to have you. Can we meet you, please? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Taiwo Oyedele. I'm the chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee, set up by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to look at the tax system and more broadly the fiscal system with a view to transform it so it can help Nigeria with modernization of our system to facilitate growth and shared prosperity. And then, of course, for revenue harmonization, because at the end of the day, you need revenue to deliver on government promises to the people.
Thank you, sir, for that introduction. Going to the main topic, Can you tell us about the tax reform, as we know the bill is very crucial to our economy? Tell us more about it.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we've been in this space as a country for many decades. Since independence, we inherited some tax laws from our colonial masters. Whether it's stamp duties, law of 1939, whether it's the Ministry of Finance Incorporated was set up by law of 1959, a year before independence. And even our income tax laws are essentially fashioned after the 1964 Income Tax Management Act. And the list goes on and on like that. In many cases, those laws were enacted in the era where we didn't have the internet, we didn't have the digital economy. The world was vastly different from what we have today. And therefore, it's not likely that you'll be able to stimulate the kind of growth that you want today using the laws that were made for the 60s. So that's the fundamental reason why we need a reform. And don't get me wrong, it's not that we haven't done anything in those many years. We haven't done enough. And sometimes you are backward, not because you're not moving, but because others are moving faster than you are. And we live in a global community today where countries have to compete for investments. Capital is very mobile. Even Nigerians who have money to invest, if the environment is not conducive, they'll go to Ghana, they'll go to Kenya, they'll go to South Africa, they might even go outside of Africa. So it was very clear to Mr. President that this is one of the most fundamental and most transformative reforms that we need to carry out, and the time to do it is now. So the committee was set up in 2023, August 8th precisely, and we're given 3 broad mandates. The first one is fiscal governance, and that's looking at how do we manage our finances as a country, our budgets, spending, revenue, and even debt. When we have budget deficit, how do you manage your debt? As well as fiscal limits, what should be debt to GDP ratio, debt service to revenue ratio, all those important benchmarks. The number 2 mandate that we have is revenue transformation. On revenue, there's a big focus on tax, but this is not to tax people more, it's actually to reduce the burden that people carry, particularly low-income earners, small businesses, and large firms as well. It's also about trying to make the system more equitable and fair. Beyond taxes, we're also looking at government-owned enterprises, whether it's NNPC, to some interest you have in NLNG, and whether it's to do with the steel company. And then you have government assets. Government has a lot of real estate. Some of it is owned by NIPOs, the Sports Commission, they just spread all over the place. Many of them are not yielding results for Nigeria and not generating returns. And number 4 is natural resources, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's solid minerals. So those 4 areas are the focus area for us for revenue transformation. And the last part of our work is growth facilitation and competitiveness. Now, this is a mandate where we're trying to say, how can you get Nigeria working so that individuals can be prosperous, businesses can grow, and as a consequence, government can collect taxes. So it's not taxes first, it's taxes last. Let the economy grow, let people prosper, and then they'll pay taxes. So we got to, our work very quickly after inauguration, and we've done a lot. But the most popular and most hotly debated have been the tax bills.
Yeah.
In fact, some people think that we're just a tax committee, and all we did was to write tax bills. But it's good. Whatever creates awareness, education, and interest on such an important area is positive. For us, we see it as a positive development. And so those bills are part of the whole reform process to modernize our tax system, make them competitive, stop taxing poverty, stop taxing capital, stop taxing investments, reduce the tax burden, harmonize so many taxes all over the place. Anywhere you turn, there's one tax error there. And for small businesses to be able to breed and allow low-income earners to have more disposable income to take care of their families, particularly their basic needs, And that is why, for example, we have zero-rated VAT on food, on education, on healthcare, so that people can at least take care of their basic needs without the burden of taxation. So, of course, it's a lot we've been doing, but let me stop there.
Well, people think you should have named your committee or the bill, Fiscal Reform Bill. Maybe if you had given it that name, it wouldn't have attracted such controversies and all. Why wasn't it called Fiscal Reform Bill instead of Tax Reform Bill?
Yeah, you know that actually we didn't even name it tax reform bills.
Oh.
We just have Nigeria Tax Bill, we have the Nigeria Tax Administration Bill, Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Bill, and Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill.
So how come?
So the tax reform bills was the name people just gave it because
the media or something.
Media essentially, and the reason why we wouldn't have called it the fiscal reform bills is when you talk about fiscal reforms, there are three broad components. You have revenue, out of which tax is a subset. Then you have government spending, and then you have government debt management. So those bills were just mostly focused on tax. So if we call it fiscal reform bills, it will not tell the full story. The other things we're doing around the fiscal system, around government budget, we're working with the Budget Office, we're working with the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, we're working with the National Assembly. We have 10 amendment bills to the Constitution that we have sent to the National Assembly, including the ones that will border on the reform of the budgeting system. So we also have a lot of work we've done around debt management. We've had some engagement with the DMO. So we also have the National Fiscal Policy document that we have worked on that tells us about our policy around taxation, revenue, debt, spending. Like, for example, in that document, we have some principles and framework for what should government spend money on. Should a governor go and build an airport when you do not have primary school and health centers and there are no roads from the farm to the market? You know, you can build the airport and people will clap for you because they don't know that that's a wrong priority, right? And that's because you've not done what we call the needs analysis. What is it that your people need? I will say that in my lifetime in Nigeria, it would happen that every local government in Nigeria and every state in Nigeria and the federal government, we have a very robust economic plan document whereby a local government will say, in our local government, we have 12,000 kilometers of roads, right?
Possible.
8,000 is not tarred. 4,000 is tarred, half of it is bad. We have 15,000 households. 12,000 of them have no access to clean water. 4,500 have no access to sanitation. So, you know, the fact that you have data as to what is it that you need to do, it gives you the opportunity to plan properly. I know if I have the next 1 million naira, my number one priority is provide food, help farmers, provide sanitation, road from farm to market, education, health. You know, it's not that you're going to do 1 kilometer of road and you come and do a commissioning ceremony and tell us this is a dividend of democracy when we don't even know that this is a time. If everybody is doing what you're doing, maybe it take us 200 years before we finish doing roads. All of us will be gone by that time. So that level of detailed planning is missing today. And therefore, once you have that properly analyzed, it will help you with your order and priority of spending. We call it altogether quality of spending as well. And then, of course, if you have spending that is more than revenue, you have a deficit.
Of course.
Which is not a problem in itself, but how do you finance the deficit, right? Don't crowd out the private sector. Should you do foreign borrowing? If you do that, be mindful of the exchange risk problem, because you can raise revenue loan in dollars to build a naira asset, and if naira loses value, all of us will be in trouble. So those issues are well outlined in our National Fiscal Policy document, which I think is just as fundamental as the tax reform bills. Yes.
So there's a saying that a lot of people, or most people, don't want to pay tax. So, and then which brings us to the issue of tax compliance. What is the committee doing to address this?
So this is the case everywhere in the world. I've not been to any country where people are queuing up and excited to say, I can't wait to pay my tax. It's hard to part with your money. That's the reality. So people would rather not pay tax, even though as a society, everybody agrees that we should pay tax. They just wish it's not them that needs to pay. Someone else should pay. You know, there's this analogy about it costs more for 1 million households to dig 1 million boreholes to generate water than it is for those 1 million households to pay tax and get potable water. That analogy applies to everything. We can talk about electricity. It will cost more for 1 million households to do their own generator, maintain it, buy diesel, than it is to pay tax and have electricity.
Yes.
So the whole essence of society, and that is the social contract, is that we know that individually we will fall short. Even the richest man in Africa, Dangote, cannot build the airport in Lagos and build the one in Kano just because he wants to fly to Kano. If he's leaving Kano to go to Kaduna, he will build another airport in Kaduna.
True.
If he wants to drive on the road from Abuja to Lagos, he will need to construct the road. No one can do it. But collectively, we can do it. And that's why we set up governments and we give them powers over us and we give them resources so they can manage those resources on our behalf to take care of society. That is the social contract. So it's hard to pay tax everywhere in the world. But it's less painful when you pay the tax and you can see what the tax is being used for. If you cannot see what the tax is being used for, it's very, very painful.
Yes,
it's like,
exactly.
It's like somebody stealing your money from you. It's painful.
They were paying, so, you know, some people say,
Yes.
we're paying it. So what are you doing with the taxes you are collecting from us? I mean, what are the benefits? This is why, I mean, we need to also talk about the benefits. While we're talking about compliance, we also have to let them know the reason why. They need to see where their money is going.
Yeah, I like the last point you made, right? I think that when it comes to taxation, you shouldn't worry too much about talking about the benefits. You need to show the benefits.
Yes.
People will see it. Yeah. If my road is good, I don't need to even watch a TV program, right? If my kids can go to school and there are teachers and there are notebooks and there are laboratories, I will know. So government must show the benefit of paying taxes. Then it will become less painful for people to pay. So essentially we say that there is the statutory taxes that we pay enacted in the law. There is the informal taxes we pay. So they're not legislated in the law, but somebody stops you and they harass you and they collect money from you, or you want to build a property and somebody says we are money and they force you to pay, right?
Yes.
Those monies don't go to the government.
Yes.
But government allowed them to extort me. So therefore I consider that to be a tax, and that's an informal tax. And the third one is implicit tax. This is when people have finished paying their taxes and then they do what government should be doing for society. So there are communities where they contribute money to fix the primary school where the kids go to school. We have communities where they contribute to take care of security. We have communities that contribute money to fix the road. The reason why they pay taxes is so government can provide roads, water, security, and so on and so forth. So essentially, I think that the more we're able to show the benefits of paying taxes across all levels of government, local government, state government, and federal government. In fact, in that order, local government is the most important because it's the closest to the people.
Grassroots.
Exactly. The more you can show that, the less resistant people will be towards paying taxes, which is what you see in developed countries.
And that's a wrap on this very first episode of Tax File Special. We hope you found today's conversation insightful and engaging. But this is just the beginning. Join us again for another exclusive edition where we continue to spotlight the trailblazers shaping Nigeria's tax landscape. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and remember, taxation is the foundation of national development. See you next time on Tax File Special.